Reaction is still pouring in from the guilty verdicts handed down to the three men charged with killing Ahmad Arbery.
The jury reaching the verdicts after 10 hours of deliberation. William Roddy Bryan Jr. is guilty of felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and attempted to commit a felony, but not guilty of malice murder. Now, Greg McMichael, also not guilty of malice murder, but guilty of 4 other charges, including felony murder. And the jury found Travis McMichael guilty on all charges.
The guilty verdicts have many feeling like the scales of justice are a bit more even today after a more than year of pain for the Arbery family. This is a case that only made it to court after cell phone video of the murder was released and then the outrage followed. We have more on the emotions outside the Glynn County Courthouse moments after the verdicts were read.
I'm Dawn White outside the Glynn County Courthouse, where an aunt of Ahmad Arbery told me right after the verdict she is thrilled to see justice served. Thea Brooks is one of Arbery's paternal aunts. She says the family can now be thankful on Thanksgiving and feel some sense of closure. Brooks marched with a group of people to where her nephew's mural is a few blocks away. Attorney Gerald Griggs with the Atlanta NAACP was one of the people who joined the march. He says the organization and activists in Atlanta will now help more families in their search for justice.
It says the movement is very strong. It says that Freedom Summer 2020 continues. It also says that anybody that would take the law into their own hands needs to be worried not only about the activists, but law enforcement as well as the prosecutors, because you will be held accountable.
Brooks wore an orange shirt with pictures of the 3 defendants on it that read "guilty" after the verdicts.
A lot more on the reaction here now. Governor Kemp also reacting on social media, saying that Ahmad Arbery was the victim of vigilantism and that it has no place in Georgia, and that those who've been following the case can now move forward with reconciliation and healing. President Biden saying in a written statement, while the guilty verdicts reflect our justice system doing its job, that alone is not enough. Instead, we must recommit ourselves to building a future of unity and shared strength where no one fears violence because of the color of their skin. This morning, the 3 men are sitting in a Glynn County jail. All 3 face life in prison. The defense attorneys for Travis McMichael say they do plan to appeal the decision.
A sentencing date hasn't been set yet, but after they are, the 3 convicted killers are scheduled to face trial again, this time on federal hate crime charges. John Sherrick has a look at what's next in all of this.
The jurors who just convicted Ahmad Arbery's 3 attackers of murdering him never heard at the trial any of the evidence that investigators claim proves the men had racist motives and made racist statements. All of that was kept out of the murder trial, but federal prosecutors are ready to bring that evidence out in the open. The 3 men are scheduled to go on trial on hate crime charges in federal court in Brunswick on February 7th. The federal 5-count indictment against them says that they did willfully by force interfere with Ahmad Arbery, an African-American man, because of Arbery's race and color, which resulted in the death of Ahmad Arbery. So a state murder conviction and then another trial in federal court.
Just because the lion chews on you doesn't mean the bear won't come along a little bit later.
Former federal prosecutor Brett Williams of Atlanta says if the men are convicted of count 1 of the federal indictment alone,
it goes all the way up to death. But typically what you're talking about is a life sentence.
And that would be on top of the multiple life sentences that the 3 men are likely to receive soon for their murder convictions. Williams says even if the judge decides that they can be eligible for parole, Georgia law requires that they serve a minimum of 30 years in state prison. So Atlanta criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen says it's possible the feds may decide not to prosecute them on the hate crime charges. And yet
they may do it because they think it's appropriate, and they're trying to send a message to the rest of this country: you can't do what these 3 people did.
For now, attorneys for the 3 convicted murderers say they will appeal their murder convictions.
And there are some more layers to this. Earlier this year, Arbery's mother filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against all 3 men and Glynn County officials, accusing them all, among other claims, of conspiring for weeks to cover up the murder. That lawsuit is pending in federal court. And Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, speaks out this morning on the Today Show, just one day after those 3 men were found guilty of killing her son. That is coming up right after 11 Alive Morning News.